coming to a sunrise. So what my eyes, that moment I visualize is coming. If you can see me now, see I'm gonna break through the life I knew. Been waiting, a dream come true. Still aiming. If you could see me now, if you could see me now.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little while since I've done one of these, but after taking a couple weeks off because of, holidays and stuff, we are back at it. We've jumped back into God of High School and we've covered 3 more episodes, episodes 7, 8, and 9. So I kind of want to go back and talk to you guys about what we watched and what I thought and felt about it. If you guys enjoy this kind of video, please drop a like, subscribe if you're new. We've got 4 more episodes of God of High School, which we're going to knock out this week. And then after that, who knows what's next. But let's jump in. So episode 7 kicks off with the first match of the national tournament, which is our crew from Team Seoul versus the North Chuchang team. And up first, Mori wants to fight, and as soon as he gets in the ring, he's talking big. He's like, I got a new weapon, and I'm going to show it off. And we see him start to hit pressure points on his body, and apparently it's supposed to super increase his strength. Turns out that while everybody was off kind of doing their own thing, Mira got her lesson from the announcer. Davey was working. He was training with that old man that we saw, the acupuncturist, and he taught him some pressure point techniques to help bring out his full potential. Well, Mori messed up and hit the wrong pressure points and basically locked up his body, and he proceeded to get his ass whooped and lose the first match. It was hilarious to see, but it is what it is. We jump over to the last scene we got at the end of episode 6, which was Q with a sword in his stomach, looking like he was dead. But it turns out he was just playing. This guy, this assassin, is the one who killed Bongsa Shim, the blind announcer, and he was talking all kinds of hot shit, basically saying that he also killed his family, and this just pissed Q off. So Q basically stopped playing dead. The sword inside of him disappeared, and his choryuk came up, and it's just, the big clown with the scythe that we saw earlier, and he just gets ready to go to work. We cut back over to the tournament, and now up is Davey. Davey is fighting this super strong muscle dude. Turns out he's a 38-year-old in the God of High School tournament, but I guess he flunked out of high school, went to work, and after X amount of years finally decided to go back into high school. So he technically meets the criteria for the tournament. And he starts off by completely overpowering Davey, throws him up mad high. He's funny because all of his attack names are named after working man stuff, as he calls it. But Davey starts to make a comeback, hits him with the 4 gods that we've seen him use before. And after the third one, he ends up forcing him back, and we see him pull out his choryuk. He actually hits Davey with an invisible strike, and then he summons it, and he basically calls it Thor's hammer. And Davey wins by overpowering it, because when he goes to swing it, Davey hits it with the Azure Dragon, his last of the 4 gods dances, and he manages to shatter it, knocking his opponent out. It's pretty dope looking. We go back over to Q, and Q is decimating this dude, literally slicing him to pieces. And as he's completely got the upper hand, the guy starts laughing because we see his choryuk is a kind of centipede that strings him back together, and he can pull himself back together. And he tries talking smack to Q. Q doesn't care. Q goes to finish him off, but he gets stopped by these two. These are 2 more members of Nox, and they immediately, as they start attacking Q, he starts trying to fight them off, and he almost loses until O jumps in. O is a dark-skinned, white-haired member of the commission, and O starts helping after talking smack to Q a little bit. Apparently now Q gets 6 months of no pay, which is kind of funny. But they each take an opponent, they start fighting, and we get to see O's choryuk. Turns out that O summons a giant dragon. O actually takes one of his dragon's teeth and turns it into a flaming weapon. It was pretty dope. Now, while they're fighting, We also did find out one other thing right when O showed up. My bad. So that wristband that tracks everybody's what's the word I'm looking for? Information. Instead, for the commissioners, it's a limiter. So when Q takes his off is when he actually goes full power and starts beating the shit out of the centipede dude. So the girl that O's fighting, her Choryuk, she has like a giant like cross and like it looks like gophers almost come out of it and shoot, and it's like a super multi cannon, and he's blocking it with this flame weapon, and he ends up taking her out, and Q ends up fighting the dude whose Choryuk lets him use like special items, and he like has wings and shit, and Q does this crazy thing where he throws a bunch of cards, and the dude gets skewered from the cards, like, and he fucks him up. They end up running away. They manage to get away from them. We go back over to Mira, who is the last fight, and she ends up fighting another swordswoman. They do kind of waste a little bit of time with the backstory of the team they're about to beat, but it was pretty obvious from the get-go that Mira was going to win. But in the midst of the fight, they give us the other team's backstory. That's how I knew about the big guy who was flunking out of high school and then went back. He actually helped the female swordsman when she was, about to give up on swordsmanship. So even though Miro ends up beating her, she, still wants to keep fighting and getting better. And then we move on to the next match. And the next match was terrifying because we get to meet a new character. One more thing that we find out when Q got attacked was that that was his home that he got attacked in, and the home of the commissioner members is supposed to be top secret. So it turns out that Mujin Park thinks there is a traitor among them, but they have to weed him out. Now, with Mira's match done, we go back over to the next match, and we meet this guy. And he don't matter. He was supposed to be like some rich son of some crazy like family empire, but after what happens to him, he clearly does not matter. In an instant, he ends up with what looks like a spike through the stomach. Turns out it was a tooth. Because then he goes up against Take Jagal, who I'm guessing is going to be the villain of the series, or at least this season, because he literally just sits there and just literally chews him. You just see his body just flailing as blood starts squirting out of the shark's mouth. The only reason I didn't get a video clip of it is because I don't know what's considered too graphic for YouTube. But it was crazy. Well, that dude's maid, who's a member of their team and apparently a good fighter, tries to attack Take Jagal, gets her ass beat, and this jerk literally says, "This is no place for women," and starts stomping on her head. Well, since he's going completely over the top, Mira tries to stop Mori from going and interfering, because you know how Mori is. He doesn't like seeing people get messed up for no reason. Well, Mori's like, "Cool, I won't go," but what about him? Turns out Davey went and attempted to kick Take Jagal in the face. The new announcer stops Take Jagal, stops Davey, and Take Jagal's opponent manages to get up, even though he's all fucked up, and attempts to attack Take Jagal. Take Jagal sends him flying, and the last thing we see of him, that's the last thing we see of the episode, is as he's flying, he gets surrounded by teeth, and then the screen cuts to black as the dude screams. It was terrifying, but so freaking cool. But that's how they end episode 7. So episode 8 starts off with us seeing that same guy being treated, and people are wondering why he didn't just disqualify Take Jagal for excessive force, but Mujin Park doesn't want to disqualify him because he might beat the key. Now we get to meet another new team that's actually going to matter. This is the South Chuchung team, and I know about this kid, Ilpio Park. He is probably the one character whose powers I actually already knew going into the series, but I haven't seen him fight at all. So I was excited to see him because I knew what he leads into. Well, their match kicks off, and his teammate loses, but he's completely fine about it. He talks to his cousin, gives her advice on. Well, I guess he gave her advice to take on her opponent. They go. They have a little back and forth, and while they're fighting their opponent, it's almost like you can hear him talking to her, but obviously he's not really. And it's like he's telling her, this dude's huge. He's going to try to use his size against her, and that she can use that to her advantage to win, which she does. He goes for a swing, with all of his weight, and she manages to catch him in the chin with all of his weight coming down right into her foot. He basically knocks himself out. And then we get to see him fight. When he fights, it's a bit of a show because he uses a very, very strange style that I've never seen before. He almost looks like a bear or a monkey trying to attack. But what's cool is while he's fighting, he gets the upper hand on his opponent, and his opponent decides to use Charyok and sends a bunch of like black spikes at him. He almost looks like Zato from Guilty Gear. Well, Ilpio doesn't use his Charyok. Instead, he straight finesses on the dude with just his physical ability. As spikes are coming out of the ground, he dodges the spikes and rushes the guy. And as he sends a bunch of like what look like metal spikes down on him, he literally jumps up behind him, gets him from behind, and knocks him out. He was so smooth. We fast forward ahead a little bit. Mira, Davey, Mori are walking home. They're talking about the tournament. They're talking about Charyok because now they've had their first real experience with Charyok. And Davey and Mira want to learn how to use it so they can get stronger. Mori, on the other hand, says a straight Goku line. He's like, I don't want it. I don't want to borrow somebody else's power to get stronger. If it doesn't come from me, I don't want it. So that was pretty funny. Mori's been really serious because it turns out that the end of the tournament, at least that day of the tournament, he was called up by Mujin Park, and basically they explained that they were looking for his grandfather, Taejin Jin, and that he is missing. They saw the battle site where he fought a bunch of dudes, and they saw his blood on the ground, but they don't know where he is. So Mori's worried. Mori ends up leaving, and he's thinking about his grandfather. He actually took an interest into Ilpio Park because on the back of Ilpio's Park was a tiger, which was the same kind of tiger that was on the back of his grandfather's uniform. Well, while he's thinking about it, Ilpio Park shows up. Ilpio Park wants to shake his hand because he's like, I'm a fan, I'm glad to meet you. And as soon as they shake hands, Ilpio kind of attacks him, but not really. You could tell he's not like going full force. They have a nice little exchange, and it ends like this, where Ilpio is about to punch Mori, and Mori's about to kick his head off. But after this, they have a nice little talk, and we get to a little bit of backstory about Ilpio. His father died, his mother abandoned him. He ended up in a martial arts academy, but he was doing really, really bad. And he met Mori, who's unconscious in the funniest way in, the carrier. And he met his grandfather. And his grandfather gave him a book from Ilpio's grandfather, basically showing him the style that he now uses. And he basically gave him words of encouragement that really got him to keep going. And that's why he wears the tiger that his grandfather wore. But while they're talking, they get attacked. I guess Take Jagal has a grudge against Ilpio Park. And even though he puts a tooth right through his hand, Ilpio Park's able to crush it and, basically shoos him off. And he gives Mori, a warning. He's like, that guy's dangerous, be careful of him. And Mori's just like, you seem pretty dangerous yourself. But Ilpio ends up leaving, and Mori, he's just like, I couldn't even move. He's like, I need to get stronger. We jump over to the commission, and Q is walking into Mujin Park's office. He's pissed. The other commissioners try to stop him, and he basically grabs up Mujin Park by the neck, and he's just like, why didn't you do something about Bong Shim's family? Why would you allow them to be killed? And Mujin Park just raises his hand, shoots this dude back, pushes him against the wall, and starts crushing him. And he's like, who do you think you're talking to? And he's just like, after he lets him drop, he throws a bill on top of his head and be like, here's the money you owe for the building you destroyed. And basically he's been racking up all the money from everything this guy's done wrong. He ends up finding out that Bong Shim's family was actually safe, that they made a doppelganger for when this dude attacked them. And that's why they tried to stop him. So he felt like a dumbass. We see he finds out that he's not getting paid for 9 months, and we see him like searching for money underneath like a vending machine, and he runs into Dewi. Dewi ends up asking Q to help him attain Charyok. He wants to get stronger. He wants to be a more dependable fighter, and he wants to be somebody that Jin can trust when shit hits the fan. He offers to cook for him for as long as it takes to train him, even if it's every day. And considering he's in such a financial rut, he considers it. We do see the rest of the commission get together, and Mujin Park tells them there's a traitor among us. Nux is going to mess with our tournament, so you know what? Take off your limiters. If his shit hits the fan, go all out. And if you find the traitor, eliminate them. Now, Davey and Mira are kind of just doing their own thing. Mira's training, thinking about the tournament. Davey's working, and they both get a message on their wristband, basically telling them it's Mori's birthday. We see Mori back by himself. You know, he's having a flashback of the day his grandfather left. His grandfather left when he turned 6, and he's been living on his own since, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But now he's turning 17, and as he's kind of lost in his own mind, Mira and Davey show up, and they basically have a little birthday party. Davey and Mira cooked in some food. They play some games. They end up eating all the food on Davey. It's kind of funny, and everything seems great. You know, and Maury's happy. He's just like, you know what, Grandpa, you were right. Having friends is a great feeling. But then the episode ends on a super dark note, where Maury gets a letter that somebody left in his door. They left in his door and knocked on it and ran. And it shows a map telling him where to go, and it shows a picture of his grandfather tied up in chains, missing an arm. And that's where the episode cuts off. Again, super dramatic, especially after how wholesome the end of that episode was. But we got a real look into, we got to really talk to Ilpio Park. We see there's a problem with Take Jagal. We got to see the commission, you know, kind of going back and forth. All in all, a decent episode. But episode 9 is, I swear, it's Zenkai Boost the episode. So episode 9 starts off with them announcing the next match. It's our Team Soul versus Team Jeju. I think I said that right. But Davey is suspended. Did I miss that? My mistake. Going through everything, I forgot that actually happened at the beginning. Forgot to get a picture of it. Davey got suspended. That was his punishment for interfering in Take Jagal's match when he was stomping on the maid's face. As Davey and Mira get there, they can't find Mori. They're starting to freak out a little bit. And we know where Mori is. Mori is driving to go find his grandfather. He's on his bike. One of the commissioners shows up and basically explains to them that they can still get 2 wins. Even without Mori, they can still win. But because Davey's suspended, it doesn't matter. Even if Mira wins the first match, if Mori doesn't show up for the second match, they automatically lose. So Davey goes to find Mori. Mira's like, I'm going to win. They make a joke about not winning too fast. But Mira gets to her fight, and she has to fight this big muscly man who's covered in oil. Now, right away, she starts having some trouble because of the oil on his body. All her sword strikes are like sliding off of him, so they're doing like no damage. And as she starts getting upper hand, because she starts to use her swordless techniques, we see one of his teammates throw in her sword to fight her. It's actually the Moonlight Sword, and they even show a nice close-up to make sure we know that's it. And he starts fighting her with it, and as Mira tries to get it back, he cuts through Mira's sword. And then we see him transform the sword into what's supposed to be its true form. The Moonlight Sword turns into an actual real sword. And Mira never knew that it could do this. Now, in the middle of their match, which is crazy because it jumps between like 3 different scenarios, we jump over to Mori, who finds his grandfather on the floor, tries to help him up, tries to wake him up, and his head twists all the way around, and they're laughing because it was a trap, and his body explodes. As he's unconscious on the ground, this guy walks up, and it turns out this guy was faking it the whole time. And Mori gets up, Mori just decides he's going to fight him, and we get to see this guy's Choryuk doppelganger, where he literally makes just a bunch of copies of himself. We jump over again, except this time we see Davey searching for Mori, and he finds his opponent from the first match already beat up on the floor, so he tries to help him out, and he gets attacked by this chick. She is from Take Jagal's team, and it looks like she's repping Bruce Lee from her outfit and the way she throws kicks. But basically, she's, I guess, bored and wants to fight, so she tries to fight Davey, and Davey manages to take her down in like 2 attacks. He basically blocks one of her kicks her in the leg, and she drops and ends up thinking Davey's mad cool. Davey helps Dude up. She actually stops him and kisses Davey, which even Davey was like, what the hell's happening? But then Take Jagal comes in, yells at her, well, scolds her a little bit, I wouldn't say yells at her. They leave, and Davey's just like, I really need to get strong, because if I had moved, I probably would have got killed. Alright, we jump back over to Mori, and we see him fighting all the doppelgangers, and even though it's like 1 against 100, he's trying his best until eventually he gets tackled through the floor, and underneath the floor we see this. It turns out that the team that Mira is fighting right now are all fakes. The actual team is dead. So now Mori is more upset. He's worried about Mira, and this guy is just like, "Why are you even fighting? You know, your body just took an explosion. You're all messed up. You probably feel like trash." Well, Mori gets up, hits 3 pressure points on his body, and he's like, "Well, now for the next hour, I won't feel a thing." And we just see him rush the dude, and then it cuts out. We go back over to Mira. Now Mira is going through some shit. She manages to get the sword back from Big Muscly Dude just to have the sword disappear on her. Turns out that the sword doesn't recognize her as its owner and goes back to him. She's fighting with her swordless techniques, doing the best she can, but eventually, you know, he manages to cut her a couple times, ends up knocking her down, and what we see is what looks to her like she falls into water. And I assume this was some sort of unconsciousness, but she ends up thinking how she wants to get stronger. She wants to keep pushing forward. She doesn't care if she has a sword or not. She wants to catch up to her friends. And we hear a man's voice talking to her. Man's voice talking to her tells her, you know, keep going, make yourself, you know, known throughout the entire lands. And we see an image of herself come down and talking to herself with the man's voice. She grabs her what looks like her own hand, and they merge, and her Chariok awakens. And we find out that that man wasn't just any man, it was Lu Bu. For anybody that's ever played Dynasty Warriors, for anybody that's ever studied Chinese culture, he is a legendary soldier from ancient Chinese times. And I knew as soon as I saw the fucking lance that it was him. And she ends up transforming a little bit. The sword recognizes her new power, disappears out of Dude's hand, goes back to her, and she just annihilates him without much effort at all. He tries to use his Chariok on her, which was a Kraken, and she just destroys him. But once she wins, she collapses from exhaustion, just in time for Mori to get there. Mori helps Mira out, goes to do his match, and Davey explains that he's never seen Mori so pissed off, and we know why, because they played him. But Mori goes against the second opponent, and he asks, you know, what happened to the dude that attacked him, and Mori shows him what happened. And his fight, not only was it was short because it was a beatdown, but they did something I've never really seen in this kind of anime, where they were going back and forth between the current fight and the fight he had against the doppelganger dude, because I guess he beat his ass the same way. And it was cool the way they did it, because at first they were flashing back and forth as Mori's beating his ass. Then they put it side by side so you could see that he was beating his ass the same way. Then as he shifts to his blue dragon kick, it's actually like on top of each other, like flashing back and forth while it's happening in motion. It looks crazy. And then he does a new move where he does a double blue dragon kick, and he just annihilates this dude. And while the commissioners are watching him, the last thing they say before the episode cuts out, it looks like a tiger. It looks like the tiger, talking about his grandfather, raised another tiger. And we see this crazy image of Jin like pissed off, and it looks so cool. But that was the end of episode 9. Sorry if this was a longer one, guys. We've got 4 more episodes to do. We're going to knock them all out at once this weekend. So if you guys want to come by, check this out, watch it live with me. That'll be Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My Twitch will be down in the description. I hope you guys will come by. This anime has been amazing. And while short, I'm going to be sad when it's gone. But that's it for me, guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. Later.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning.